For more on this, I'm joined by the Democratic Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal of Washington. She's a member of the House Budget, Judiciary, and Foreign Affairs Committee. Congresswoman, good to see you on the show again. Thank you. You have called President Trump's directive to Attorney General Bondi to release the grand jury transcripts a sham. Talk to me about why.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, this incredible fury of defensiveness from Donald Trump is just showing that he's got something to hide. Calling for Pam Bondi to release the grand jury testimony is a tiny, tiny piece of the whole thing. As you and I both know, that is a very long, complicated legal process, first of all. But secondly, it involves a lot of redactions. I mean, essentially, if you look at her letter, she says redact anybody's name that is important to protect privacy. And there are a whole bunch of other files, photographs, videos, testimony that is not going to be released with the grand jury testimony. So that is why we have been saying that we need to release all of the files. The DOJ needs to release all of the files, and not in a way that redacts all of the information and puts sort of the onus of deciding what is credible or not credible in the hands of the Department of Justice. The Republicans tried to pass a non-binding resolution on this to put it to bed in the Rules Committee. They haven't brought it to the floor for a vote. But let me just be clear, that is also a sham. The only thing that will work is to release all of the files. That is what the Ro Khanna Thomas Massie resolution does. It is a privileged resolution, so it hasn't what we call ripened yet. We can't all sign on to it, but it has enough Republicans that it could pass. And then, of course, it'll be on Mike Johnson to decide that he's going to really bring it to the floor. Yeah, because it'll have some majority Democratic support, and it'll literally just need a handful of Republicans. And there do seem to be enough concerned Republicans about this. I want to talk about something else that's going on, and that is that the House has passed the GOP's bill pulling back $9 billion in previously approved spending. That's already passed the Senate. It's now on the president's desk waiting for his signature. Cuts $8 billion in foreign aid, $1.1 billion from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which funds NPR and PBS. Tomorrow I'm going to be talking to the former president and CEO of NPR, Vivian Schiller. Can you talk a little about the risks of and the consequences of these cuts to Americans? Obviously, these are things that we talked about a lot because they were the Doge-inspired cuts, but they're coming to pass now. That's right. This is essentially Trump's attempt to make it possible to cut back money that was already authorized and committed by Congress. This is the first time a rescissions package like this has passed on a party line vote in the history of our country, because it's very dangerous for Congress to agree to something and then for the president to take it away. But these cuts in particular, this USAID cut of almost $8 billion is a stunning destruction of vaccine prevention, of HIV/AIDS prevention, of money that we give to make sure, number one, that people around the world, their lives are being saved, and U.S. is using its soft power, but also to prevent diseases from growing and coming across the borders to the United States. So in every way, this funding is protecting Americans as well as utilizing our soft power skills to help save lives around the world. The public broadcasting funding. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt. I want to hear that point you're about to make. I was just going to say the public broadcasting funding, about $1 billion. People just need to remember that that is money that funds radio stations, television stations in rural areas around the country. Now, we can stomach this cut in Seattle. We already raised $1 million to help our public broadcasting. That is not the case in rural areas. And those stations give weather alerts when there are floods, when there are storms, when there are emergencies that happen. It's public education for every American. So it is devastating, and rural stations are going to close. And it's all because of a political ideology. And also, I just have to say, Ali, let's remember that they passed a bill last week the big bad betrayal bill that raises the debt by $4 trillion. So cutting $9 billion from USAID and public broadcasting, things that Americans really need, is not at all about saving money. It's about a political ideology.
Is it tough? And I think the public broadcasting stuff is probably easier because most people touch it regularly. The problem with USAID is it's one of those things that's worked in the background for a very long time that the majority of Americans would have no idea how it worked until somebody went to cut it, and then we learned that we were saving the lives of HIV-infected children for 12 cents a day, and the soft power. I mean, these are just not things that are tangible for a lot of people. How do you solve for that? There are lots of things that government does with your tax dollars that have what seem to be intangible effects until they become tangible because you've lost your soft power. You've lost your influence in parts of the world. Diseases are creeping across borders that you're going to get sick from.
Well, it's tough. We have to keep talking about it. And that's why in every hearing on the Foreign Affairs Committee, I talk about how Americans seem to think this is part of what the right wing has done in recent years in particular, to say that somehow we're wasting money on foreign aid. First of all, it's a very tiny amount of money. It's less than 1% of all of our spending that's spent. And most Americans think we're spending 20%. When I say to them, give me a percentage that you would be willing to spend, most people say 10%. I'm like, great, let's take it. This is a tiny amount of money, but has enormous consequences on saving lives. And we're just going to have to keep, pushing this into Americans' heads, that this is going to hurt not only our efforts to build and lead a global coalition around the world, but also it's going to hurt Americans' health and safety, because these diseases are going to come across borders. And right now, they're even stopping samples from being sent to the United States, where we do the analysis for the rest of the world. And our ability, USAID has put money into reducing the amount of time to respond to an outbreak from 2 weeks to 2 days. You and I know that it is essential to respond to outbreaks immediately, because once these viruses spread, it becomes very difficult to contain them.
Remember when this used to be a bipartisan thing, USAID and soft power around the world?
George W. Bush. How can we?
PEPFAR. Great to see you again. Thank you for being with us. Democratic Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal of Washington.